Hey y'all, it's Abby and welcome back to the Swatchosaurus YouTube channel. This is the place where I'm going to tell you all about my crafting hobby and where the fiber arts joy is leading me. And we're going to dive right in. So make yourself at home and let's yap about some crafts. That sounds good to me. Okay, first up, as I've mentioned on previous episodes, one of the goals I have for myself with my fiber arts is that I want to be able to try to wear a handmade item every single day, whether that's like, oh, I'm tossing on a handmade cowl when I go outside into the cold, or if it's something that I'm like wearing throughout the day. It doesn't really matter. Just and if I don't perfectly execute it, there's no like repercussions for that. It's just more of a like orientation towards using the things that I make and being intentional about wearing the things that I make. So today's handmade highlight is the sweater that I'm wearing right now. This is my stick season sweater by the Creabea or Rebecca Clow, and I knit this in Granite Mountain Fiber Co. yarn in the colorway Perseid, which is after the comet. And so it's got a lot of that like fiery orange and blues and then like a nice white to kind of break it up. I am obsessed with this sweater. This is the first garment that I've finished in a minute where I was like knitting it and already like, I'm gonna make this sweater again. Like this pattern is great. I chose not to do the stick season texture option. And that is because of the variegatedness of the yarn. I felt like I wanted to really celebrate the yarn, felt like this pattern was really cool, and I just wanted to put them together. So the stickless stick season is what I'm wearing today. And I'm super pleased with it. And I've really enjoyed wearing it so far. And it's really easy to style because I can wear it with leggings or jeans or joggers or whatever other pant option suits my fancy on a given day. Today, it's joggers. So that's what I'll be wearing throughout today's episode. Let's dive into some finished objects. I have two for you today. I'm very excited about them. The first one I have for you today comes with a bit of a backstory. I was in a mood, and that mood kind of echoes throughout today's whips and some other things. I was in the mood to not wind yarn. I just couldn't be bothered to get out my Swift, couldn't be bothered to get out my yarn ball winder, just couldn't want to do it. A horrible, horrible experience. So I only wanted to work with things that I had in my stash that were already in cakes or donuts, able to be worked with immediately, etc. So luckily I had plenty of that in my stash, and I made this cute little blue scarfie. I am going to put the name of it on the screen rather than trying to pronounce it. It is in a Scandinavian language that I am not an expert in pronouncing, and I think you would enjoy it better if you just saw it on the screen. But it's a super easy pattern. It was actually a free pattern. If you subscribe to the creator's newsletter, you get access to this pattern and one other. And I knit it up in a combination knitting for olive merino and knitting for olive pure silk mohair in the colorway Poppy Blue. Blue isn't usually like a color that I gravitate to, except for when it's like a navy blue, then I'm like, I must, we must, one must. But I saw, again, Rebecca Clow of the Creabea was knitting this like one of her latest sweater patterns in this like electric blue color. And I was like, I need something in that immediately. And at the time, like when I originally bought this yarn, like rushed to my local yarn store that carries knitting for olive, and was looking at all the colors to get inspired and snagged myself some of this. And then it just sat in stash for a while because I was like, great, I did it. I got the blue yarn. We did it. And originally I was going to knit it into the Terpsichore, I think that's how you pronounce it, scarf by Sari Nordland. And unfortunately that pattern is only available as part of the book, and I didn't want to buy the whole book just for a scarf pattern. So I kind of emotionally moved on from that and then just wanted to cast something on. And so I was doing this like textured knit. It's only knits and purls and like garter stitch ridges in between. super easy, and I'm gonna put it on. It's gonna rustle my mic, so please hold. So you can see it's super cute, super easy to style, and super soft and cozy, and it's pretty light, so there's a lot of options for styling it and wearing it, and I'm very pleased with how it turned out. So that is my first finished object. Make sure I'm showing you the right side and not the wrong side of the fabric. How embarrassing would that be? My second finished object is a bit more substantial. This is my Affric sweater, again, by Rebecca Clove, the Creabea. I'm obsessed with her patterns. I love that with all of her patterns, she gives options. I love that she offers size inclusive sizing ranges. She's just introduced a mask and femme charting and sizing for her patterns. She also has really inclusive size and like test knitting policies that I like. So overall, love to support her work, and the fact that like the stuff that she's making is stuff I want to make and add to my wardrobe is just all makes it, yes, correct. So this is my Affric. I knit this with just some leftover like Barocco vintage that I'd had in my stash for forever, and was like, I'm not going to use this. I don't know how to use this up. But then it all just like clicked in together. And I was originally under the impression that I wasn't going to be able to put like just have the motifs all be the same colors. So right here we've got this purple, and then in this second motif we have this green. In the original pattern, the idea is that, you know, it's the same 3 colors throughout in the color work, but I was under the impression I wasn't going to have enough yarn in any one color to do this, so I did it with one of each, and I said, that's fine, it's my own little twist on it. I like color, I'm not mad about it. I think it turned out super great. I wore it out the other day and took some footage of me out in it, and had my lovely Instagram husband Cam help me with that. And they did a really good job, so thank you for that footage. And it knit up pretty quickly. I really like that in this sweater pattern, you have this like chunk of really easy color work. You're never working with more than 2 colors at once, and the stitch repeats are really easy. So you just like memorize what you're doing for that row, and you can just crank through a row. And then it's broken up by several rounds of plain stockinette. So it's like, okay, I can bust through this and then take a little break, and then bust through this and then take a little break, etc., etc. I'm very pleased with it. It's one of my, beginning stranded color work pieces. I don't have too many of them under my belt at this point. There's a little bit of difference in like the tightness around the bands versus how loose the fabric is in the plain stockinette sections. That kind of comes out when I wear it, but it doesn't bother me. I'm not too perturbed by it. And Rebecca Clove typically makes her patterns pretty cropped to hit right at like the top of your hip bone. But I wear a lot of leggings that have a seam kind of at the bottom of my hip bone. And so I made this a little bit longer on the body just to kind of accommodate the fact that those are the pants I normally wear, and that's where I want my sweaters to hit with that. And it worked out fine. I think it looks great. I think it's super comfortable and soft. It blocked out nicely. The thing with Rebecca Clove's patterns and me is that we are not gauge compatible at all. So I even was like swatching for a pattern where she wanted a 17 or 16 stitch gauge on 4mm needles and DK weight yarn. And I was hitting easily like 20 some odd stitches on 4mm needles. So I'm gonna have to size up like at least a millimeter size. I think this sweater was designed, if I remember correctly, to be knit on 8s, US 8s, aka 5mm, and I had to knit it on US 10s or 6mm needles to even come close to hitting gauge. And that is not uncommon for me when knitting a Creabea pattern. But who cares? I have those needles. I'm ready to knit with those needles. Bigger needle, go faster. Everyone love. So that is my Affric sweater. I'm very pleased with how it came out. I have a sweater. And that's always very exciting. Big garments are hard to finish. This is an accomplishment, and I'm proud. I'll give you one more close-up view. Whoosh. And back over here. Here it is. So those are my 2 finished objects I have to share this time. Next, let's talk about some whips. I'm going to share 3 whips this week. The first whip is another Rebecca Clow, the Creabea Designs pattern. Shock. I told you I like her designs. This is my staff-in vest. Let me figure out which side is the front. I believe it's this one. It is an all-over texture pattern vest. Let me see if I can get you some. I don't know how well the pattern texture is going to read on camera. I haven't spent a ton of time filming or photographing this, but it's got like a diamond stitch pattern, and it's got little like faux baubles, and then it's got 2x2 ribbing all around it. I'm knitting this on Knitting for Olive Heavy, what's it called? Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino in the colorway Bottle Green, and I'm holding it double with some Knitting for Olive mohair in the same color. Been working on a lot of mohair projects lately, and that has been fine, but it's one of those things of like, if I mess up and have to frog this at all to rip back to fix something, it's a bit more of a pain in the ass because the mohair just really wants to stick to everything else and not come undone. Luckily, I'm such an expert knitter. I've never had to rip back anything in my entire life ever forever. So I'm just that good at knitting. No. But I'm really pleased with how the progress has been going. I'm knitting this in the size 5 because I wanted it to be really oversized. Again, I feel like Rebecca Clow's patterns tend to like aim towards like actually having a garment that fits you properly, which is an incredible approach for a designer to take. I love that. This one I did knit in, I believe, the size 3, so it is a bit more like fitted to my size, but I think with the amount of ease this was getting me in the gauge I was getting, I said size 5 is going to do me just right. And I am knitting them on 4.5mm needles because, okay, I remember now. I originally just had the worsted weight yarn, and I was like, great, I'm going to go for it. I knitted up in the needles that it called for, which I believe were, again, 5mm needles, US 8s, and I was like knitting it up, and in order to get the gauge that she called for in the pattern, I'd have to really size up my needles, and by that point the fabric was going to be too drapey in my gauge, and I didn't like that because like so much of the point of this is to really be able to see the texture pattern, and I felt like at a really loose open gauge, like if I stretched this out a ton to try to emulate that, like it just wouldn't read as well and I wouldn't have been as happy with it. So I had to pick up some mohair, and luckily the mohair exists in the color that matches. Beautiful. And when I picked that up, I was like, okay, great. And then ended up actually sizing down in needles to meet gauge. Never happened in my history of knitting Rebecca Clow patterns, but listen, there's a first time for everything. I really like the fabric that this is making. I'm joined in the round for the body, and so now it's just finish the body and then put on the collar and the like sleeve armhole cuffs, and then it's done. But it's going to take a while because it's a texture pattern. But again, what I like about this is it's in chunks, right? So like you can go through and you can do your chunk of diamond pattern, and then you can take a break, or you can, sometimes you want to roll right into the next texture pattern. It's just a nice way to like chunk it up so it's not just like stockinette forever. I say that, but lately I've been craving stockinette forever, and we'll get to that in the next whip. But yeah, this is my staff-in vest, and I'm very pleased with it. I'm really excited to see how it turns out. I haven't made a ton of progress on it this week, or like in recent weeks because my brain's been split to so many different whips and projects and things, but it is coming along and I am really happy with it. So there she is. So that's my first whip. And again, it's in keeping with the I don't want to wind yarn. So I'm pretty sure I bought this yarn specifically because I was like, I had the idea and then I was like, and also I need yarn that's not in hanks that I would have to like unwind, put on a skein winder and like ball it into a cake like to use. No, again, I could not want to do that. So I didn't do it. I bought more yarn. And now, friends, we must again talk about what must now be known and referred to heretofore after as the brioche blender. So if you have been watching all of my previous videos, you will have seen me talk about the dream of the two-color brioche cardigan for my partner Cam. And all I wanted was to knit them a cute little cardigan in two-color brioche in their two favorite colors, blue and purple. And I have already had one mega fail attempt where I've had to completely frog the whole back panel and move on to a whole nother pattern. And I had really high hopes for this pattern because I was like, great, it has a lot more like projects listed on Ravelry. It seems a lot more intuitive in the pattern construction. It's a raglan construction, so you're working back and forth and doing raglan increases, and then you split for sleeves and put the sleeves on hold and then knit the body. I was like, great, I understand the construction of this. I understand the measurements. I had to, work through it. It's the For the Love of Brioche jacket, and I'll put a little right there for you so that you can understand what I'm talking about if you haven't heard me talk about this before. And I was like, great, this is great. The only problem with it is that it is a one-color brioche pattern, and I wanted to knit it in two-color brioche. But I did see projects on there where they did do that. And so I was like, great, awesome, no questions. We've got this. It's just like with one, but now there's two. The problem is, folks, and I really need to learn to accept this about myself, is I don't know how to count rows in two-color brioche worked flat. And I'll tell you how I know that. This is because I have this monstrosity, which is supposed to just be the yoke of the sweater at one of the smallerest sizes that the pattern offers. So there's just no way, actually this is the top, there's just no way in hell that this is just the yoke of, again, this sweater. If this is what we're going for and this is what I have, something is painfully wrong. And something is painfully wrong, and of course I don't notice it till I'm like almost at the end of the ball of yarn. I have this huge thing. I didn't notice it back when it was like this small, where we could have intervened and maybe ripped back and done something and it wouldn't have been too terrible. But I also just wanted to like cruise on it, and like I was working really hard, and then someone pointed out to me like, Abby, your yoke is really, really big. And I was looking at it and I was like, damn, you're right. I just like don't have enough experience with cardigans to really like understand how big the yoke is supposed to be. And I was looking at the picture in the pattern and I was like, well, mine looks like that, but it's like 2 to 4 times the size that it's supposed to be. Because what I've been doing, so with brioche, it's one of those stitch patterns where like a forward pass and a return pass on the back side counts as 2 rows. So every time you see a V here, it's actually 2 rows worked. So you're supposed to count it as 2. But because I have 2 colors, I have to do a forward pass in purple and a forward pass in blue, and then turn to the back and do a return pass in purple and a return pass in blue. And so for me, I was like, well, that's 2, so that's 4. But I was just counting it as regular 2 instead of as 4. And I don't know what's right and what's wrong. I don't know if I'm explaining that well. Part of the problem is I don't know how to explain it. I just know that this is like way too big. So it was a whip, and now I am sad and mad. And so it once again must go into hibernation. I need to take a break from it. I need to take some space. And I honestly might need to have a conversation with Cam about whether or not they'd be okay with a one color brioche cardigan instead of a two color brioche cardigan, because I really just need to be able to follow the pattern. I'm not skilled enough yet to be able to like compensate for there being two colors yet. Or I just need to do more other little projects that I'll talk about later in two color brioche to like get the hang of it, to build confidence for tackling a whole ass sweater. But again, I'm ambitious. I've never let I don't know how to do this stop me from trying with fibercraft. And like as annoying as this is, once we get it right, it's going to be amazing. Like, I really love the fabric. I like the gauge that I'm hitting. Everything about it is correct, other than I don't know how to read the pattern to make it the correct size that it's supposed to be. So here we are. Yet another brioche blunder. And I'm hanging it up in my I'm upset at you closet so I can forget about it for a minute and take a break. Now, for my last whip, this is all kind of cumulative, right? So you saw I was doing a textured scarf. I was doing a textured vest as my whip, my saffron vest. And I had the textured brioche cardigan, brioche blunder. Sounds like I'm saying blender. I'm saying blunder, but I just heard blender. And so I'm assuming that you also heard blender. And if we need to just call it the brioche blender, I'm fine with that. But it is a blunder, not a blender. Moving on. I was doing all these like textured knits, texture, complicated counting situation that I'm clearly not ready for. And then I was like, it's too much texture. Where's my regular stockinette little guy? And so that brings us to our third whip of today. I am knitting a petite knit pattern. I'll talk about that in a minute. But this is my Eva cardigan. Oh, I'm obsessed with this fabric that I'm making. Look at this. Oh, you have to love it. You just do. I love this orange. The yarn that I'm using is the Viking Fiber Co. Loafin Sport. It's a non-superwash, US grown, 90% RWS Shanico fine wool, 10% gray Romney, in the colorway Shipwreck, which just absolutely I'm obsessed with. And then I paired it with, again, Knitting for Olive mohair in the colorway Burnt Orange to kind of give it a little more of that rusty red look in the whole cardigan. Hey y'all, it's Editing Abby here, and I just want to apologize. I got all the way to the end of filming my episode, I thought, and I thought a decent job, and I was like, great, we did it. We're done with filming. We're gonna let it sit, and then we're gonna edit a little bit later. It's gonna be great. But then I literally got up to turn off the camera, and guess what? Found out it had only recorded the first 25 minutes of what is like an hour of content that I then would edit down into the video you're seeing right now. It was a devastating blow to learn that I had to refilm like half of what I was gonna be presenting to you today. But yeah, so I'm gonna do my best to edit it so that it picks up smoothly from where we left off. Yeah. The epic highs and lows of YouTube content creation. Am I right? So I think what I was telling you about before I was so rudely interrupted by the forces of the universe that decided I was no longer recording was that I'm almost done with the yoke of this sweater. I have a whole nother set of like increases to do. And again, I'm shoving them onto these needles, which are the same size needles I'm using for the brioche blunder, 4 millimeters. Yeah, 4 millimeters, US 6. And this is the size of the yoke, right? So like, how did I do so much mental gymnastics to just conveniently forget that this is a normal size for a yoke sweater for me or for Cam, such that the brioche blender got so big without me realizing, without noticing, without wanting to like really come to terms with the fact that something had gone awry. I don't know. We know that denial is the first stage of grief, and it could just be that I was living in denial longer than I care to admit. I will cop to that. That is very possible. That I just wanted to go. I wanted to go and I wanted it to be good and I wanted to figure it out and I wanted to be on a smooth path. And then we saw what happened. But anyway, this sweater is going very well. I'm obsessed with this fabric. The Shanico Romney wool is so soft. It's so, so soft and cozy. And the mohair gives it a nice halo. I really like the effect that the mohair is having on the overall like color of the garment compared to, I don't know how noticeable it'll be, but like, right, they read slightly different in person. I don't know how they'll read on camera. We'll find out. But I really like that. And I'm hoping that if there are any like major dye lot differences across skeins of this yarn, that the mohair might help pick up some of that. And now I do want to take a minute to address the fact that I am knitting a petite knit pattern. For those who are not knitters, this is kind of a, I don't know if it's considered hot button or like politically charged or topical, but it has that same kind of effect of like petite knit has a huge following, a huge brand, a huge number of knitting patterns produced, and has been criticized for kind of being not size inclusive, or either that or being like performatively size inclusive. Examples where you can check for that are looking at like the amount of positive ease in a garment should be the same across all sizes. So this pattern, the Eva pattern, does not do that. The Eva pattern has a certain amount of positive ease for the smaller sizes, and as you go up in size, it modifies the amount of positive ease. And a lot of fat designers and makers have made it very clear, like, right, we want to make the garment that was shown to us and we want it to fit like that. That's why we're making this garment. So why have you taken away positive ease in our sizes? That kind of assumes what fat designers and makers are wanting. They should want the flattering look of this amount of positive ease, is one interpretation. Another point on that note is that that's not the same garment then. Like if this sweater that I'm wearing that is more fitted to my body had more positive ease all of a sudden, like it became baggier and drapier and that was like the baseline for the pattern, that's not the same sweater. That's a different sweater that you're making, which is also not what is being asked for. Another thing that you can look at is like in terms of like performative, I don't know, I'm putting that in quotes. It is performative. If you're doing this, it's performative. Performative size inclusivity is the idea that, okay, so it's really common now to see that your patterns go up to like 5X. A lot of the size inclusive chart standards are to go up to fitting a 60-inch bust circumference. But what happens is sometimes designers, again, at the larger ends of the sizes, say, okay, and this garment is designed at all sizes to fit with, let's say, 5 inches of positive ease. And then what happens is the total bust circumference is, at the largest size, is like 63 inches around on the garment. Now, if you subtract out the 5 inches of positive ease from the 63-inch bust circumference at the largest size, you are actually have a garment that fits a bust circumference under 60 inches. So even though it looks like it goes up to 5X and it looks like it has like all these like bust sizes, it doesn't. I don't remember if that's what's happening in the Eva cardigan pattern or not, so I will double check that in editing. But those are some of the critiques that like the Size Inclusive Collective and other like fat and plus size designers and makers have kind of said, hey, this is what's up, this is what we're seeing, this is what we're not okay with. And Petite Knit has come under a lot of fire for their shortcomings in those areas. And I think it's great that they are getting criticized where criticism is due. I do not think it's super great that they were doing it in the first place, or that when this was brought to their attention, like, were they making changes? I am making it. Despite all of the criticism, it is still a well knit pattern. I bought this pattern at a time in my making where I wasn't as clued in to some of the like inclusivity problems in knitted design wear in general. And so I don't think I would be spending my money on Petite Knit patterns now. I think I would choose to try to look elsewhere for patterns first. But I already had this one, and I had the right yarn, and I met gauge, all of the things lined up to mean that I am making this sweater fully aware of the critiques and problems that the designer has kind of had brought to her attention. The yarn is super cute. I think it's going to turn out really cute. It is just a basic kind of cardigan. And again, it's really nice for just a plain stockinette pattern. I don't think that that's like particular to the Eva cardigan by any means. I'm not trying to like prop up this cardigan as like, but actually it's great. It's fine. It's a basic cardigan knit pattern. There are many like them that I'm sure are also good. I like having a plain stockinette pattern in my rotation right now that I'm working on. That's all I'm trying to say there. And I like the fabric that it's making. I like the yarn that I'm using. I think that's all I want to say about this right now. I'm hoping that by the next time we see each other, I will have a lot more progress. I would love to be able to split for sleeves soon. That's the next phase, is finishing the yoke and splitting for sleeves. So let's tentatively hope that the next time we see each other, I have split for sleeves on this, but don't hold me to that, because we know I tend to just like want things, and then I end up over here making 14 pairs of socks, or I haven't actually done that. It's just an example, and it's using hyperbole. But you know, one can set dreams and goals and visions, and that's great, but am I going to get there? You and I will both find out. So that's it for the 3 whips I want to talk about. And again, hopefully this segment for the Eva cardigan isn't too disjointed. Now I want to talk about acquisitions, or rather the lack of acquisitions. Friends, I had to institute a yarn buying freeze for my own well-being. It needed to happen, and it's important that it's here. I'm not happy about it. I'm not having fun. I hate delayed gratification. Let's talk about it. So the yarn buying freeze came about because when I was like, I don't want to wind yarn, all of the yarn that was like this in hanks in my stash, which is most of it is in hanks, where I would need to like wind it up into a cake in order to use it. I wasn't winding yarn. I didn't want to do that. So all of my yarn just sat there. Even though I have project ideas, even though I had things I want to make with it, I was like, I can't be bothered. I simply can't be bothered. So what did I do? I bought some more yarn. I bought the yarn for my staff invest that I showed you. I bought yarn for another sweater. I bought yarn for a baby blanket. I bought a lot of yarn. That was in like donuts or cakes or other like forms that were ready to use right out of the package. No additional winding required. And I kept doing that. It's not like I went wild. I don't think anyone would be like, oh my goodness, you spent how much on yarn? And I'm not trying to like sticker shock or anything like that. But I hit this point where I was like, yes, I have been spending a lot on yarn. And Cam was like, it's been a lot. And remember that we're going to like fiber festivals and other things later in the year. And you're going to want to be able to like spend more money and feel, freer to spend your budget there rather than just going to Wool & Co. and browsing their website and picking up some yarn that isn't as like sentimental, significant, produced locally, indie. And they're absolutely right, but like that means I have to wait so long to get new yarn. And again, delayed gratification, not my friend. So I instituted the idea of a yarn buying freeze just for myself for the next couple of months to really focus on using what's already in my stash and I already have projects for and I already have plans for and it's perfectly good yarn, and to give myself more spending freedom later in the year when I'm going to some of these yarn festivals and events and things. So that means I don't have a ton to show you for acquisitions. And it also means that you and I, we're now in accountability about this, right? That I will be able to come to you and say, I messed up on my goal, here's what I bought, or be able to say, look, it has been X many days since I have purchased yarn, we're going strong, it's good. I need to come up with an actual like date at which I am like allowed to buy yarn again. It's hard because I'm not trying to make this like super rigid and punitive, but I'm also trying to like be realistic about my budget for yarn and crafts and things like that. So as more details arise, I will specify them to you as needed. But for now, we're on a yarn buying freeze. But a couple weekends ago, my friend Carly came to town and she wanted to buy yarn to knit her first sweater. And so we went to the yarn store and we picked out yarn for her. And while we were there, I did buy some things for myself. And then that's when I was really like, okay, we floated the idea of a yarn buying freeze and now it is like definitive, we need to be doing this. But I'll still show you what I bought. I bought this skein of spin cycle yarns. They're worsted weight, dream state in the colorway petrichor. It is gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. Petrichor was one of those ones that they put on their website and their Instagram, and I saw it and I was like, I love that, I want that, and it was at the store, and so I wanted to buy it. It's freaking expensive. It's 50 grams of yarn for like 30 something bucks. So you don't just have tons of spin cycle laying around, but like this one felt special and I needed it. I didn't need it. I wanted it and I bought it. I want to be really clear about that. It's just got these like really cool mixes of like rusty orange, cool browns, beigey, and then some green and different blues, like a dark blue and then more of a pop blue. And I said to myself, could I pair it with something like this? And this is Cascade 220. And the colorways that are listed are just numbers. So it's 2448. What a beautiful colorway name, don't you think? I think they actually do have colorways. They're just not listed on the labels. They're listed like on the website and stuff. But like pairing these two together, okay? Are you seeing the vision? In something like a Harlow Flip, which is a 2-color brioche beanie. And I'm hoping that maybe by taking on something smaller like a hat will help me build confidence in my 2-color brioche to re-tackle the brioche blunder at a later time. Not right now, absolutely not. But I think that these two are absolutely beautiful, and Cascade 220 is a lot more affordable, and it was on my list of like yarn brands and specifically I wanted to try 220. Like it's on a list of yarns that I have that I wanted to try, and so that was really fun that I got to do that. And then yeah, the yarn buying freeze went up, and so that's the last thing that I've bought. I still have some things that I ordered like pre-yarn freeze that are still going to be coming in as part of like pre-orders and stuff. So as that comes in, I think there's only one order that I'm waiting on, but as that comes in, I'll show it to you. And it will be an acquisition, but it will be from before. And the other acquisition I have was a complete surprise to me, but check this out. This is a little scarfie, which you know are my favorite, that was made for me by my cousin Ellen, who is High Altitude Knits on Instagram. And she doesn't usually knit accessories at all, but she made a special exception just for me. And now she's making scarfies for herself. So have I converted her to making accessories? Maybe. Who's to say? This yarn is beautiful. It's Explorer Knits and Fibers as part of their Butterfly Effect collection. And what happened was that was all part of an advent that Ellen had bought. And she was looking at this skein and going, I don't know what I'm going to do with this skein of yarn. And around that same time, I had like sent her the Instagram post about it and was like, heart eyes, this is amazing. I love this. And she was like, oh, instantly done. No further questions. I have to make them something with this. And she did, and it's so cute. This is the Honey Scarf by Brianna Mason. Let me actually show you the right side of the fabric. And it's just a little scarfie, but it's so cute, and it's fun to style. And I did already, don't worry, put it on both of my cats. So I will definitely insert pictures here to show you the fashion, the looks that they are serving wearing this little scarfie. It is so comfortable and cozy. The fabric is so light. The cables are so well done. I just can't speak highly enough about my love for my cousin Ellen, and I'm going to keep trying though. And this gift was such a nice surprise and so thoughtful. So that is an acquisition that deserved a shout out. Next, let's talk about what I've been spinning in a segment I am tentatively calling Spin to Win. I'm so snurfly. Okay. I only really have one spinning project to talk about this episode that I've been working on, but I'm really excited about it, so here we go. Okay, at Wisconsin Sheep and Wool, I bought this beautiful braid of light brown Shetland yarn from Oh My Fibers, and it's gorgeous. It's soft. It smells like farm, like you want your sheep wool to smell like. And I'm obsessed with this color. I really like warm browns. They make me really happy. I'm sorry, getting caught up looking at the fiber. And then I was staring at this braid and I was like, I think this braid needs to be paired with something else in a combo to really like get more mileage out of it, do more with it. And I think it's just such a good neutral to pair with so many different things. And don't you worry, I picked up a braid. Ooh, let's rewrap this. Oh, so embarrassing. I picked up this braid from Little Fiber Co. It's in their colorway La Boheme, I believe is the pronunciation. I'm not good at French. I never have been. But it has all these different types of colors, including, I thought, a color that was a pretty close match to the brown and the Shetland, and I thought it would hang out well together through these icy blues and these warm oranges and reds. It's a beautiful braid. I'm really pleased with it. So I pulled a sort of like Princess Diaries. We took this, and we turned it into a combined yarn. I want to show you some pictures, so I'm going to put them on the screen of sort of different lead up pictures I have of the process of like this braid next to its single and this braid next to its single, so you can kind of see the process coming to life. And then we took both of those and came up with this. So this is a 2-ply yarn of, half of each of those braids. And I should say, the Little Fiber Co braid is Targhee. And I really like spinning with Targhee. It's a cool wool. I'm a fan. I'm hooked. I'm in. Targhee, you and me, we're in it together. And I really like how the brown helps those like very different color segments of the Little Fiber Co braid really merge together and blend beautifully, which is like the point of having like a solid tonal through, I guess one could argue. But you still get those like moments of red and orange and icy blue throughout. It's really pretty. I really like it. And now I have a whole bobbin full of it, and I plied this on my Daedalus Dove, my newest spinning wheel. And I'm really happy to have a spinning wheel that has a bobbin that can handle 2 50-gram plies coming together, because before I was only using my Ashford traditional and those bobbins only hold 50 grams. And so when those are full, if this is 50 grams and this is 50 grams and you ply them together, you've got 100 grams going onto a bobbin that only holds 50 grams. So you have to pivot and you have to cut the yarn and make 2 50-gram bobbins. And it's just not as much fun as just being able to go and spin the whole thing at once. So thank you, Daedalus Dove. I'm still working on a name. It hasn't presented itself to me yet, and I'm letting it take its time. But I'm excited about this. I'm not sure what I want to do next. I can't decide if I want to spin up the rest of the yarn this same way, or another option is I take this 50 grams and I spin it and I ply it against itself, so you just get the experience of what this colorway wants to do. And then I would do the same for this colorway as well, that I would spin it specifically to like just see what the Shetland is like by itself. And I don't think that there's a bad option, which is my executive functioning hell. If there isn't a criteria I can use to sort of decide what I want to do or decide what's going to be best, my brain is like, I don't know. So if you have thoughts on that, please put them in the comments. I would love your opinions. And I will keep you posted on what I decide to do in future iterations of this spin to win segment. So that's all I have to report on spinning wise. I have some other things in the mix that I'm like angling to gear up to start to maybe think about potentially doing, but nothing concrete enough for me to even want to present it to you here yet. But in future episodes, you will see more spinning. And now to kind of wrap everything up, I want to talk about some life stuff that I've been up to lately, mostly about what I've been watching or reading or looking at. Just so we can get to know each other a little bit better and be in conversation with one another outside of fibercrafts. Not that I have too much going on in my life at any given time that is like devoid of fibercrafts or separate from fibercrafts, because that is my main hobby right now and my main focus, but we've got some stuff in there, so let's talk about it. First of all, I have been watching this season of The Pit. I love The Pit. I love a medical procedural. I watched ER recently, like in kind of a lead up to the first season of The Pit launching, and I loved it. It was absolutely like a fascinating look into what medical care looked like back in the 90s. And again, I only watched it like recently leading up to the first season of The Pit. So it's cool to be able to hold that like really closely in contrast with one another to see exactly how big that jump is from an ER in the 90s to an ER in the 2020s. Having a great time. I love all the characters. I'm so fascinated about where the rest of this season is going to go. And that's one where I'm tuning in every week and I'm watching it episode by episode. So I'm caught up. I'm ready to talk about it. So if you want to talk about The Pit or other medical procedurals or dramas, I've seen almost all of them. So I'm ready. Something else that I spend a lot of my time on is Dungeons and Dragons. I really like tabletop roleplay games. And right now I don't have like a campaign going, and I don't have one kind of gearing up or anything like that. So I'm not playing D&D as much as I would like to be. But in that gap, we have Baldur's Gate 3. Cam and I recently upgraded our computer setup to a gaming computer that actually can properly handle PC gaming, which is great because that also helps me with video editing and rendering and uploading, because we were doing it previously on our shitty laptop that's just old and wasn't made to do big hard things like this, and it made putting out videos really tedious and hard and made me not want to do it. I had a bunch of like content filmed that I was just like, I can't make myself put this onto a computer, our laptop specifically, to try to get this to all work out. But anyway, now we have gaming computer and we're so excited. We love gaming computers so fast. And now we can play Baldur's Gate 3. I love playing Baldur's Gate 3 because it scratches that itch of I want to play D&D. I want to do more D&D things. And it's really fun playing, like, so Cam has a file and I have a file, and I'm playing a bard. And the thing about bards is that they're big into like charisma and performance and persuasion. They're really good at those types of skills. And then Cam is playing a fighter who's really good at smash stuff, hit stuff, kill stuff, die. And that just changes our experience of the game so much. So we'll both experience the same like conversation or interaction or like group of people. And Cam will be like, yeah, I like instantly got into a fight with them and had to kill them all. And I fought the battle and I won and it was great. And I'm over here like, I didn't have to fight them at all. I just persuaded them into letting me do whatever I wanted. And they were like, cool, yeah, whatever. And then we just went our separate ways. So it's very interesting, both being able to like share what we've done and how we're approaching the game. It's really fun. I'm a fan. And again, it's like, oh, I get to play D&D on my time with, however long or short I want. And I can just like back up to a previous save if I don't like what choices I made or anything like that. So it's a fun time, and I'm really enjoying the time I get to spend playing Baldur's Gate. And also on that note of Dungeons and Dragons, I am watching Critical Role Season 4. I do really love it, and I love what's happening. I love the choices that Brennan is making as a DM. I love the choices that the PCs are making with their characters. But I'm in kind of a like crest and trough like wave pattern with Critical Role right now, where I like will watch a bunch of episodes, like I'll binge them all in a row, and then I go through a trough where I'm like, I can't watch this right now, either because I don't have enough attention, or it's not striking me the right way, or blah blah blah. And so what happens is I get a couple weeks behind, like I am right now, and then all of a sudden like it'll catch me just right again, and then I will blast through like 2 or 3 4-hour episodes in a couple days, and then I'll be all caught up again, and then we go back into this sort of motion. So I am behind right now, but only by a few episodes. I'm sure in a couple days I'll be like, all I need to do is watch Critical Role, and then I will do nothing but watch Critical Role, and I will get caught up on Critical Role, and that's the rhythm that I'm in with Critical Role. But I do love this season, and I love what's been happening, so that's something that I am actively watching. The last thing I want to talk about that I have been watching is I did watch this season of Bridgerton, and I did not like it. It was not for me. First of all, if you haven't watched it, I am going to be talking about some plot points, so get out of here if you don't want spoilers, I guess. But first of all, I'm just like, okay, so I just didn't really care about any of the like plots or subplots that were happening. And I just feel like with Benedict, we got these like very strong, like he's doing the second son thing, and like he gets exposed to like queer culture and community. He gets exposed to like being involved in a more like, I don't, polyamorous or like threesome or throuple kind of dynamics in past seasons. So we have this like really cool view of like how he could be like pushing the cishet envelope of Bridgerton. And then all of a sudden, like his season comes up and it just becomes this like very like, it all just kind of funnels back down into a monogamous cishet relationship. And that also follows this like textbook Cinderella plotline, and I got bored, and I was like, I did watch the whole thing. I watched the whole thing, of course, but I still was like, this is annoying. And also I think that Sophie is a bag. She is just a total catch. She is excellent, and I think that her love is wasted on Benedict. And I think that Benedict should have pursued other more interesting relationship dynamics personally. And I mean, and this is to say nothing of the sort of like production value of the season. The costumes, great. The queen's wigs, great. The settings, amazing, colorful, vibrant. I love that. I love that this show has so much color to it in a world where so much of our media is trending towards the sort of like grayscale, dark, muted kind of color scale. But the plot, I wasn't here for it. And so to get the sort of bad taste of Bridgerton season 4 out of my mouth, I rewatched Bridgerton season 1, and Cam and I were like watching it intermittently and like chatting about it, and we were just like, this season has so much more life, so much more going on. I'm so much more interested in the plot and the subplots, and all of the dynamics of people seem so much more robust and rich and developed than what we got in season 4. Yeah, so season 4 wasn't for me. If you disagree and that you have a different opinion, like we can still be friends, that's fine. It's not super important to me, like, and Bridgerton isn't super important to me as a show, but I did watch it and I wanted to tell you about it, even though my thoughts were season 4, meh, would not rewatch probably, unless I was doing some sort of like sick day binge of the whole show or something. I don't know. That's where I'm at with that. Kind of a negative note to end on, but that is all of the like life media updates that I have to share with you today. So I guess with that, there's only one thing left to say, which is thank you for visiting my craftland, and you are invited back anytime. If you'd like to stick around, feel free to click on another video or give it a like or comment or subscribe to make sure that we see each other again. And until then, I will see you next time. Bye!